Okay, before we get to the corn and the beans, a couple of words about hoes, because I've done some research since I last talked about this hoe. As I now know, this design is called a beet hoe, also a nursery hoe or an onion hoe. It's got the squared off shoulders, and those shoulders are low. That's so that it is light and nimble and can do work with things like beets and onions that are very delicate and easy to kill with a hoe. This is by far my favorite hoe design. Put a 30-degree edge on it. That's obtuse enough to hold, but sharp enough to cut. Light, nimble, doesn't wear you out. I just hoed for an hour. Just at the very end of it broke a sweat. Never once was I breathing heavy. Easy work. If you've got an edge on it and the hoe is light, it's doing most of the job. This is heavier, and I can just pick it up and feel it's heavier. This is a regular garden hoe. Higher shoulders, they're rounded off. The whole thing is more kind of brutish. If you're making big hills or furrows, something like this, it's perfect. If you've got big weeds to kill, this is what I would use. And we also have this, which I guess is called a stirrup hoe. This is not mine, but I've had them in the past. They're really good for if you break a handle on one of these other hoes, it's easy to take it off and put it on that. Now the corn and beans. Given what they went through weather-wise, it's really not as bad as it could be. There are places where the germination is not that great, but as I was hoeing, some of it's still actually coming up. So I think if we get more rain tonight, maybe a little bit of thunder and lightning, some of the gaps in these rows are going to fill in. The problem with this whole section is, although the soil was in pretty good shape when I planted it, we immediately got that 5 inches of rain and the temperature dropped, and this ground sat at about 55 degrees. You really need 65 for both of these to germinate. So they just sat there. Meanwhile, the weeds were coming up, and when they finally popped through, they're definitely competing with the weeds, which is why I had to go through and carefully hoe all of them to make sure that they're going to be the dominant plant as time goes on. So what I'm going to do here to finish up their treatment for the day is spray everybody down with a good stiff dose of Manure Tea. So this has been soaking all night. I wouldn't say it's compost, I would say it's aged manure. Got a nice dark blend. This should really make them grow. And I think with corn and beans both, you don't have to worry about giving them too much nitrogen. Unless you're using like straight urea or something, they're going to eat up every bit of nitrogen that you can throw at them, especially the corn. There we go. Now if we can just keep the raccoons out of this, we're going to be okay. With the leftover compost tea I had, I went over these tomatoes. They look a little bit drowned or bedraggled too, so ought to help them. So thank you for watching. As always, every comment, every view, every subscriber, you mean a whole lot. Thanks again, and I'll see you tomorrow. Still got to put my hose away.